Very often, a lonely hike through a wild, uninhabited area turns into tragedy, forcing people to fight for their lives in deadly conditions. Even worse, everything happens when a person finds himself trapped and forced to survive in exactly one place. You're probably familiar with the sensational second story of Aaron Ralston, whose hand was trapped under the moon. In order to free himself after several days of surviving in this position, he removing that the story of Charlie Hengsha, who decided on one of the most difficult missions of his life. A solo hike in the American Sierra Nevada mountains shortly before his complete. He decided to go prove that he could still survive in the wild alone. Charlie wanted to show himself that he was still self-sufficient. He had hiked in the mountains many times before, but always with friends. He knew that a solo trip would be the most difficult challenge, but Charlie wanted to conquer his fears. His girlfriend, with whom he had been in a relationship for 7 years, was waiting for him at home. She didn't want to let him go, but she understood that he needed it. Charlie planned a difficult route, a 50-kilometer-long circular route, which he hoped to complete in 5 days. On the first day, he climbed high on the peaks, Sierra Nevada. Here, 30 kilometers from civilization, he enjoyed the beauty and solitude. There was only him and nature. Nevada is a majestic place. The local beauty has always attracted many travelers. It is very quiet and peaceful here. At his age, with his current physical condition, this hike was very difficult for him, given his condition. His friend had warned him about it beforehand, but Charlie had already come a long way and was not going to turn back. After an exhausting day, he was finally able to enjoy his self-sufficiency by devoting a little time to safety. There are golden trout here, high in the mountains. Charlie ate the fish he caught that evening, because he believed that there was nothing better than fresh fish. The first day was simply wonderful. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. However, in September, the weather in the mountains of Nevada changes, instantly and dramatically. But, full of enthusiasm to continue on, Charlie ignored the first signs. In the evening, a rather stiff wind and peace were shaken. The wind speed increased every hour, and Charlie, for the first time, felt how vulnerable he was. The wind alone was getting stronger. He wanted to sleep. It's not working because of anxiety. It's not very pleasant. Then it started snowing, and our solo traveler really started getting a strong wind. To a terrible snowstorm. The only thing Charlie was hoping for was, what kind of night would it be? The snowstorm would subside. He was lucky. And so it happened, on the morning of the second day, when Charlie woke up and saw snow everywhere, the tent half hidden under it. And despite the fact that the weather had cleared, the snowfall had greatly changed the landscape, and now he can navigate the terrain.
He didn't recognize these places. He had hoped that this journey would be his test in the wild, but now he was faced with a difficult dilemma, whether to break off the hike and immediately descend the mountain or desperately follow his plan. But Charlie was too enthusiastic and therefore decided to continue. He wanted to climb to the pass, cross it, and descend along the eastern slope, hoping that the weather would definitely be better below. The path ahead would be difficult. After 2 hours of struggling with the elements and moving blindly, he decided that he had taken on an impossible task. But he was already sorry for the effort spent, and he decided to go to the end, telling himself that everything would be fine. He had to do it. Forcing himself to move forward, Charlie climbed to the dangerous pass, but here the weather suddenly took a turn for the worse again. It started snowing and the wind howled. It began to freeze in his face. Charlie began to realize it was beyond his strength. He turned his back to the wind to warm his face, and at that moment something terrible happened. A sharp gust of wind blew him off the 3,000-meter-high peak, sending him into free fall down the mountainside. He couldn't stop, spinning like a wheel. It seemed like an eternity in that moment. Charlie hit his head. He realized he couldn't do anything. He only prayed. Eventually, a ledge on the mountainside broke his fall and saved his life. There was just one catch. The ledge was only 5 feet thick and 3 feet wide. He looked up and realized he couldn't climb back up. The cliff was sheer, like a wall. He looked down and saw that it was even steeper. He realized he was trapped on a cliff from which he couldn't get out. He was clinging to the edge of a 100-meter abyss without special equipment. He was now literally forced to cling to life. During the fall, he had broken his right wrist and seriously injured his spine. The blow to his head caused a severe concussion. Under the freezing gusts of wind, his self-preservation instincts heightened. At the same moment, the pain from his injuries began to increase in his right arm. His head became numb and slowly swelled. The pain was terrible. He knew that the only way to survive now was to get warm. Fortunately, he had fallen onto the ledge along with his luggage. This meant he could pitch a tent, get into his sleeping bag, and warm up. There was so little space that he couldn't walk. The ground was hard. He couldn't secure the tent as usual, but with great difficulty and through the pain, he finally got into his sleeping bag and rubbed himself dry. It suddenly dawned on him how lucky he was. After a while, he felt warmer. His sensitivity began to return. Then he remembered his cell phone. When he dialed emergency services, Charlie heard nothing but beeps. After trying unsuccessfully to reach other contacts, he realized there was no reception. Realizing he couldn't contact the outside world and was trapped on a mountain ledge, Charlie despaired. Worse than that, he wasn't expected back from the hike for at least a couple of days, so no one would raise the alarm anytime soon. No one would look for him for a long time. Charlie realized his only option was to wait on this ledge until someone finally noticed he was missing. At night, the temperature on the mountain peaks drops well below freezing. Physically and psychologically exhausted, Charlie desperately needed rest. He was in pain, precariously balanced on a tiny ledge, too scared to sleep. It was the third day of his stay in the mountains. Even though Charlie had some food in his backpack, he had lost all his precious water supply during the fall. He hadn't had anything to drink. After 12 hours without water, his condition would deteriorate sharply. He decided to melt snow. Despite the fact that there was enough snow around him, he would have to melt a huge amount to barely quench his thirst. He had to leave the tent again, risking falling from the small ledge. Having collected more snow, he began to light the stove to melt it. For Charlie, this was the road of life.